I want to give my audience, if my audience been, I've had old podcasts, I think from last year, and I was talking about BDSM. So the difference with this podcast,
Hmm.
Wesley is going to introduce himself and explain how BDSM work, because I may be going on my very first date and I need to do it appropriately.
Yes,
So introduce yourself.
sure. So my name is Wesley Toma. I am a relationship and intimacy coach. I focus mostly on the queer and kink communities, uh, two communities that I'm very proud to be part of. That's an adorable kitty. Um, uh, kink is a very big, important part of my life. I give it a lot of credit on how it's made me a better person in the end. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it, and I think if done well, if done right, if done safely, anybody can have a great time with it, and it can be very enjoyable.
Okay. And you have safe words.
Hmm. So yeah, so you did want to talk about safety and all that stuff. So we can get into that. Um, in terms of safe words, I don't actually use safe words myself. Not because I don't think they're bad or because I'm trying to be unsafe. Because I find them limiting. When you use a safe word, if someone in a scene uses a safe word, scene is over. You're done. You can talk about it. You can kind of work out, figure out what happened, but you're done. The scene is over for the night. What I do is I use the red, yellow, green system, kind of like the streetlight system, and it is what you think it is. So like green means everything's good. Just go full force, or go ahead, I should say. Yellow means we're gonna stop. We're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna discuss it. And from yellow, it could either go back to green, which means you can continue on, or it can go to red, which in red means you just stop. That's like safe wording out. You're just done. But it gives you that little bit of middle ground to like say, okay, I need to yellow for a second. Let's have a conversation. I don't, I'm loving what's going on, but you did this one thing. Maybe you had a negotiation, you forgot to mention something, and that person just happened to do it. You don't want to ruin the whole night, the scene. You just want to tell them, hey, can we not do that again? You call yellow, say, hey, this thing, I'm not a really fan. I forgot to mention, I'm sorry. Can we just not do that again? Yeah, sure. And then you call green and you keep going. Um, One thing to remember about the light signal, the color system, is the person who calls yellow has to be the person who called green. If you called yellow, I cannot call green because I was not the one that stopped the scene. So I'm not going to continue until you say green. It's like one of those silly things to say. It's like, but like even if you say, okay, I'm all set, you say green. You green, and then we go. It needs to be very explicit, especially when it comes to kink. And kink should be very safe and it can be very dangerous. A lot of things that kinksters do can be risky, and they can be dangerous. So we need to take every precaution we can to make sure we're being as safe as possible. And in that part, in that sense, is there's a thing in kink that we talk about that's called RAC, risk aware consensual kink. It basically, I mean, it's what it sounds like. It basically means that you understand there are risks, you are aware of them, and you accept the fact that something bad could happen, but you're consenting to the scene. You're consenting to let things happen. You're not consenting to be hurt. But you're consenting to the fact that you understand that what you're doing could be dangerous, potentially be dangerous, and you could potentially get hurt in it, and you are aware of those risks. It's kind of like the way I think about it is like when you're going for surgery, a doctor's always going to tell you the risks before you do surgery. He's going to make you aware of every possible outcome that could happen. And you are aware of that, and you sign papers saying, yes, I know this is going to happen. I still consent to surgery. Kind of think of it the same way. As a person in the scene, you are saying, yes, I understand the risks, I understand the situation, and I'm okay with it. Let's continue forward.
Okay, and we did talk about this
Mhm.
because you was talking about from the sub view, but
Yes.
from the dom view, if he's not comfortable of doing certain things. He also
Yes.
can call use the light system.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of people think the sub is the only one that's gonna use is gonna safe word out or is gonna use you're gonna yellow or red out. It's not necessarily true. You know, I know this is not our first recording or our first attempt at this, and I know in the past you've told me a story about years ago some guy wanted to be fisted, you weren't comfortable, he was kind of pushing you, you know, and that would have been a time when as the top, as the dom, you could yellow out or you could have read it out. You know, the dom can still do it. Now, granted, the sub is more likely to yellow or red, but it's not unheard of for a dom to do it as well. Because if you have a fairly, I don't want to say the term aggressive, but if you have a very passionate sub that just wants to keep going and is very, very pushy, kind of like the situation you were in, yeah, you can say, nope, I'm going to yellow, I'm going to red, we're done, I'm not doing this. And you should never do a scene, whether you're a sub, whether you're a dom or anything, never do a scene you're not comfortable with. Never agree to anything you're not comfortable with, never do anything you're not comfortable with, and never feel like even though it was negotiated and you suddenly don't feel comfortable with it, you have to continue to do it. You know, the one thing with consent is it can be removed. You know, the one thing I tell people is when you're in a scene, you can always renegotiate the scene. When I say that, I mean you cannot renegotiate harder, but you can renegotiate softer. So if you're in a scene and things aren't going the way you want them to, you're not feeling comfortable, you can stop and have another conversation and say, look, I don't feel comfortable. I want to back it off. You never want to go in a scene and say, hey, we're having a great time. Let's go a little bit further. Because, you know, when you're in a scene, when you're in just like any sexual encounter, your brain chemicals are off. They kind of start doing wackadoo things to your body. You don't realize how you're feeling. And, you know, as a guy, your dick takes over and you don't always think straight. So you never want to be in the middle of a scene and say, okay, let's do more. You always want to, but you are 100% allowed to say, let's do less. Because the whole point of the scene is to have fun. The whole point of kink is to have fun. The whole point of sex is to have fun. That's why they call it play. You know, you're playing because it's fun. You don't want to make it a chore. You don't want to make it a habit. You don't want to make it uncomfortable. You want to have fun. And if you're not having fun, why the fuck are you doing it? You know what I mean?
And we also talked about, because I had a situation where the guy had me take what you call it, reefer gummies.
Right,
And the thing about it that I didn't like, it put me, I don't know, it's kind of, I was in and out of consciousness, seems like. And I think that I w was going too hard.
right.
But I don't know if I was or not, but I didn't feel comfortable in it, and I stopped. Of course, he didn't want me to stop, but I mean, I'm very new at it.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't feel comfortable like beating someone
Mm-hmm.
because I'm scared I'm going to beat them too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And what you were saying before, sometimes they do say, beat me harder.
Mm-hmm.
And I really get uncomfortable because I'm thinking I'm going to hurt them.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you know, I have no problem with drugs or any kind of mind altering. I mean, hard drugs, highly addictive ones that can ruin your life. Yeah, I have a problem with that. But like marijuana, you know, a little E, some Molly, you know, maybe whatever, poppers. I have no problem with that stuff, especially during play. But my only thing I would say is if you're not comfortable scening while high or drunk or stoned, or you're not comfortable having your partner high or drunk or stoned, don't do it. Especially if you're new to it, especially if it's your first, if you're new with that partner, like so how I do it and how I like to try to tell people how they should do it, especially when you're on the dom side, is I need to learn you. I need to learn your body. I need to learn your tells. I need to learn your reactions. I need to know when you make that face, that means yeah, I've gone too hard, but you don't want to say something. I need to know when you make that face, that means okay, I'm kind of bored. It's, you know, I'm gonna yellow up because I'm just bored and you're not doing enough. You know what I mean? So you need to learn those nonverbal cues. If you're high, you're not paying attention to those nonverbal cues. And if your partner is high, those nonverbal cues may not be there, or they may not be the same. And even if they are the same, if you don't know the partner, if it's a new partner and you don't know those verbal cues, nonverbal cues, they're not going to give you the verbal ones because they're too high and they may not realize they're hurting. They may not realize they need to give a cue to tell you to slow down or whatever. So I would say as a Dom, I would never get high because I know how I am stoned, and I'm not going to seem stoned because I know how I am, and I'm not. My brain is not. I can't focus. I can't be in the scene, and that makes it dangerous. If I get too caught up, then I could hurt. I could potentially hurt somebody, and I don't. I obviously don't want to do that. But if my sub wants to be high or they want to get stoned, cool. As long as we've had it, we've talked about it. As long as we've had some time together, that maybe seen a little bit, and I've kind of learned about them and learned their body and learned their cues, I'm fine with them getting stoned. As long as they are also aware that, especially the first couple times, because you learn their cues, but now you got to learn their cues when they're stoned, because it will change a little bit. As long as they're aware that, yes, I may not stop at the right points because I now need to learn a whole new side of you, and your cues are going to be a little different or a little skewed. So, I'm going to have that conversation and say, okay, if you want me to spank you and you're high, that's fine. If tomorrow or when you sober up, you realize I hit you too hard, understand that I'm reading your cues and I'm now relearning those cues, and I may miss one or two. And since you're high, you may not be able to give me the cue. So there's that thing. In the end, you got to learn it. Once you learn them high, then great. If they want to get stoned before you play them, do it. But if you're never comfortable with it, I worked with a client that had a partner that would play with someone else, and they would always get high or drunk or whatever whenever they would play together. And they were asking for my client to join them. My client was sober, so they weren't going to get high or anything, but they wanted to join. The other couple, they wanted to get high while they do it because that's how they play. And my client was very comfortable by this. And I told them, I'm like, you tell your partner, you tell his partner that you're happy to play with them and you're happy to learn with them, and you're happy to let them be high or stoned, but not right yet. Because they were also kind of newish doms. I'm like, learn. It's the same thing. Learn your partners, and then tell. And if they're not okay with that, then don't play with them. It's very easy to say, like, I will be happy to play with you as long as we follow these rules, because and it's not like you're asking the world. You're asking for safety. And if anyone says no, I don't want to be safe, then you probably shouldn't be playing with them anyways. So yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with it, but if you're not comfortable with it, do not do it.
Yeah. Since you brought up the safe part,
Mhm.
um, I would like to talk about the sexual wellness
Mhm.
when you're doing BDSM.
Yeah, so and I think a lot of the things that we do in the kink community could translate very well to the vanilla community. In kink, because it can be dangerous, because there is risk involved. We do emphasize conversations. We do emphasize negotiation. We do emphasize consent, and we emphasize aftercare. And these are the things that I will not do a scene. I've been married for 13 years. I know my husband. I know everything. I know every inch of his body. I know every little thing that he likes. If we're gonna try something that we've not necessarily done before, or we're gonna do something differently, we're gonna have a conversation about that first. We're not gonna just do it in spur of the moment. Even though even it's like I know he's gonna like this, I'm not gonna surprise him with that, because that's where safety is an issue. So I say to anybody, and again, this is great for even in the vanilla world, because most people, you meet at a bar, you come home, you start fucking, and then you kind of feeling it out. You do something, oh, I don't like that. Okay, don't do that again. Why go through that struggle when you can just have that quick conversation at the beginning? Oh, I don't really like head. Oh, I don't like getting eaten out. I don't like my ass chewed. Okay, cool. I won't even bother trying those things because you don't want them, and I don't like that, and that's good. And it just makes it makes the experience better. And kink is the same thing. You want to talk to the person, you want to get to know them a little bit, and then you have a negotiation. This is what we're going to do. This is the limits. These are the things we are agreeing to do. These are the things that we are not comfortable ever doing. These are our limits, and these are the things we will not do. Period. Um, and then once after that, if you come to an agreement, you both consent. You have your scene. And again, don't change, don't negotiate up once the scene starts. I have a friend who negotiated a tickle scene, and halfway through, both partners like, I'd really like to have fuck right now, but they didn't negotiate that, so they didn't do it. And that's how it is. They didn't negotiate sex, and in the moment, they're not of the right mind to make that decision, because they may make a poor decision because of the chemical
Yeah.
changes in their body. And then after the scene is done, or after the sex is done, and it's something that the stereotypical straight guy is terrible with. It's the aftercare, it's the cuddling, it's the talking, it's the comforting. And everybody has aftercare is different. My aftercare is not going to be the same as your aftercare, and everyone has to learn their aftercare in kink. Like, when you start, you don't know what you need. When you start, you don't understand. It's hard to understand why you need aftercare until you need it, because when you're in a scene, um the endorphins, the adrenaline, it goes high. It can spike really high, whether sub or dom. And then after the scene, when it drops, you drop. And there is a thing called sub drop, where it's a very well known, very common thing, where sometimes days after a scene, a sub gets depressed because the endorphins are gone, the chemicals are gone, and they get into a kind of a depressive state. And doms can get that way as well. But what you want to do is afterwards, you need to comfort that person. If I'm going to spend an hour spanking you and calling you dirty names, I'm going to need aftercare later to remind myself that I'm not an asshole. That's what I need for aftercare. And I'm going to want to give you the aftercare to let you know that, no, you are not those things. You are a person, you are a human being, and I respect you if that's what you want. If you don't want that, I know I played with someone who all they want to do is, when we were done, they went in their car, they got high, and they left. Cool. That was fine. I didn't get my aftercare from them, but the good thing about being married is I had my husband. He was in the house. When I was done, I just aftercared with him. So I didn't have to worry about this guy who wants to just walk away. And if you're with a partner that their aftercare is vastly different than yours and they can't give you what you want, that's another thing to say, maybe we shouldn't play together, because you kind of want to, especially if it's a long-term partner. If it's like a once or twice thing,
Mm.
whatever, do what you got to do. But if it's like a long-term partner and their aftercare doesn't really mesh with yours. Like, I'm a cuddler, I'm a kisser, I'm a talker. If I'm with a partner and I'm seeing and they don't want to cuddle afterwards, I don't want to fucking talk to you, because that's who I am. I'm in the core, an affectionate, emotional person. I will call you dirty names and I will beat you till you cry, but in the end, I'm a kind, gentle-hearted person, and I need that cuddling afterwards. I need that gentle time for
Yeah.
myself. So I want someone who wants it as well. I don't care what you want during the scene, but after the scene, we're gonna cuddle. If you don't want to cuddle, we're not fucking seeing it.
Um, say a few words on because one guy I was fooling around with, and I think he mentioned, I'm glad he did mention that he he sterilized the toys before he brought them over.
Mm, very
And
important.
and of course he cleaned himself, before he come over and all like this.
Mhm,
And I thought that was, you know, like I said, I was new at it, and I thought that was very interesting. He told me that, and I'm glad he did tell me that.
mhm.
Because then I realized, because what toys he bought, I mean, if they're not clean, I mean, put it this way, it's more bad for him because I wasn't going to use them,
Right.
but I'm using them on him.
Yeah.
So, but he let me know that he sterilized his toys, he sterilized them,
Yeah.
and he made sure that he did the appropriate thing, you know, douche, I guess he called it douche and everything to make sure he's
Yep.
right. Which I'm glad he did, because like I said, at the time that he was my very first one, and I didn't know what to expect if I'm going to fist somebody.
Right.
So,
Yeah. You don't
so
want to fist and pull out a handful of poop.
yeah, I didn't want to.
Yeah.
So, so anyway, is there anything else you can, think of that we should
Yeah,
know?
well, we can talk about that whole thing with cleaning,
Yeah.
and sterilizing, because that is very important. Uh, I have a puppy that I play with regularly, and he's a fisting puppy.
Uh-huh.
I call him puppy because he's into pup play. So he is, we play. He's my puppy. I'm his daddy, and we do a lot of that stuff. And something actually we talked about before, in one of the previous conversations that I also want to bring up is when me and him play, I am a nail biter
Yeah.
and I have rings. When I do any kind of fisting or fingering or any kind of ass play, I'm taking the rings off and I'm putting on gloves because that's a very sensitive area. And even if you're a guy with if you're sleeping with someone with female assigned parts,
Mm,
even that area can be very sensitive. You don't want to stick fingers in there, especially if you have sharp nails, rugged fingers, or whatever. You could cut them. If they bleed, if they have any kind of infection, you can get infected. Or if you have any
mm,
infection, you can give it to them. So it's I will always wear gloves whenever I do any kind of fingering or penetration with my hand. I always wear a condom. That's also non-negotiable. If I have a partner that says I don't want you to do that, I'm going to tell them too bad. Either I wear the glove or I wear the condom or we don't play. There's nothing wrong with standing your ground in kink and being assertive. But when it comes to toys, I'm gonna do a little show and tell, I think, if I can. I happen to have it here. Uh, Spur of the moment. Um, these are, what are they called? These are urethral dilators. So have you heard of sounding?
excuse me?
Have you heard of sounding?
I think I might have, I don't know what it is. I might have
So
heard
this is a urethral dilator.
it. Uh-huh.
Sounding is when you stick this into the urethra,
Right.
and that's a kink. It's part of the medical kink,
Oh, yeah.
and they have different sizes, and people will stretch up to different sizes.
Okay.
And these are really big. I could never even. I don't know anybody who could take that, but I mean, I've seen porn. Um, Whenever I use these, I will clean them, I will wash them, I will soap and water, and then I will rub them down with alcohol to disinfect them as much as I can. And when I play with these, and they're right here because I also do like to play with them for myself, but they're one of my favorite toys for others as well. I have a box of gloves here,
Mm,
and on top of that, I have is it sterile lubricants, like sterile surgical lubricants.
yeah.
Not just plain lubricant, this is sterilized lubricant that the doctors will use when they do surgeries and procedures. Um, I'll put the gloves on, I'll squirt a little bit out. I won't touch the tip because you don't want to contaminate the tip of the container. I'll squirt some out, and that's what I will use. If I need to squirt out more, I will throw that paper towel away, lay out a new one, squirt some more out, maybe change my gloves first, and then use that. Always, it's all about safety, it's all about precautions. Because if even if you're just doing ass play, if you're using a toy, even on yourself, if you're using a toy that you've used on yourself and it's not clean, you know, it can still sit there and you know gather germs and diseases, and then you stick that back in yourself, and now you're introducing those germs and those bugs and viruses back into your body, and you can get yourself sick. So it's not necessarily even about keeping your partner safe, which is key number one, but it's also about keeping yourself safe. I never insert a toy into myself or into a partner without making sure it's clean and safe first. And I think anytime anybody does it, I don't care if it's a silicone dildo, a vibrator, or a metal urethra dilator. You always want to make sure it's clean and it's in good condition. Also examine all your toys. If it is any kind of wear and tear, if they look like they're breaking down, please replace them. Do not use a toy. Keep in mind silicone toys and lube sometimes interact poorly. Certain toys and certain lubes will interact poorly. They will melt. If that happens, that toy is done. Throw it out, get a new one. You always want to be safe, and you always want to be clean, and you always want to be safe. And that's it. You always want to be safe, you always want to be clean, and you always want to be sanitary whenever you do anything.
Yeah. By the way, the last guy I had, I guess, because we cuddled and took a nap together, so I guess that was our downtime.
Yeah, that's your aftercare. That sounds like lovely aftercare. I one time I played with a guy that I fucked him, and I didn't come, but halfway through we were like, all right, let's take a nap. And we laid down, we took a nap. I was still inside of him. We fell asleep with me inside of him. I woke up, pulled out, and then we kind of just played more. That was a little bit of aftercare. Whatever it is for you, whatever works, find your aftercare. If you don't know what it is, that's fine. You'll learn. you know, and it's basically about you do the scene, and then after the scene, you reflect and say, what could I use right now to make me feel better about myself? Or what can I use right now for comfort? And if that's, a piece of chocolate cake, next time you play, have a piece of chocolate cake ready. If that's cuddles, then have cuddles. If that's, a cigarette and a bourbon, whatever makes you feel better.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You know, I kept saying why you got to do this video, because this way I could show it to somebody and I don't have to say what you said.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And I'm
You're
quite
welcome.
sure, I hope my audience is going to enjoy the video.
Yeah. And if they want to reach me, my website, wesleytolma.com. Or you can email me, wes@wesleytolma.com. I'd love to talk to anybody. And, I'm also taking clients if you need a life coach,
Yeah.
relationship coach, I'm here for you.
All right.
All right.
So I'm going to end this part by saying you have just heard the craziness that lives inside my head.